sure you check out our online store where we work with our graphic designer to create stunning garment and product designs that feature a wide variety of aircraft types such as British fighters, World War II aircraft, American bombers, Russian fighters and much more. You can pick your favourite designs and personalise any items within our Redbubble store that range from clothing right the way through to stationery. All of our designs feature our logo, so you can show your support for the channel while getting a quality product. You can head to our website aircrewinterview.tv and click store, or go to redbubble.com/people/AC interview. Thank you and enjoy. Chris, you also instructed on the Tucano. Can you tell us how this happened?
Yeah, so I actually started out, I left the VC-10 as a co-pilot and went to instruct on the tutor on elementary flying training. And then I actually got a short notice posting out of area to go and do a ground tour in Afghanistan. And my wife's also in the Air Force, and when I came back, she was on the Tornado, was due to be posted, and a few options for her. One of them was instructing at Linton. Actually, the manning at the Air Force are quite accommodating when they've got couples like we found ourselves to be. So I sort of said, well, actually, can I go and instruct on the Tucano as well, so we can be co-located up there? And having, of course, previously flown the Tucano, although not that successfully, but having at least flown it, that was, and being a qualified instructor, they were actually content with that. So we both went up to Linton to instruct. So yeah, I got back on the Tucano. I loved it. I mean, I would have liked to have done that anyway, but the trigger point for going there was actually the co-location with my wife. So that was really good of the Air Force actually to do that.
Yeah. So what was the aircraft like to fly?
Yeah, initially, and also from obviously knowing it previously as a student, but initially the Tucano is a bit of a pig of an aircraft to fly. It's got a lot of torque effect. It's a powerful turboprop engine. There's no sort of auto trims or anything like that. So it's a lot of rudder to keep it straight. And whenever you touch the throttle, you're pretty much putting in rudder to balance out, even when you're airborne. But once you get used to it, and obviously the standards that the Air Force expects are high. So but once you get used to it, I loved it. And for my ability, it was sort of just right. 240 at low levels, so 4 miles a minute, 250 feet, flying around the lakes or Scotland if you could get further. You could do aerobatics in it. You could do the high level stuff. If you needed to get places. It was a great versatile aircraft. It's not quite the sports car that the Hawk is, but it's still a great aircraft to fly once you've got to grips with it. But that's almost enjoyable in itself because you have to get used to it and earn the right to fly it well. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, very fond of it.
Chris, is it true that they're all different sizes?
Yeah, that is true. So the Tucanos are Brazilian design, but they were built on licence by Shorts in Belfast, and who I think, although they do build aircraft, also previously built ships. And they're just all slightly different sizes. So if you park them on the line on the parking spots and then look down the line, you will see that they're slightly different lengths. And so they do all handle slightly differently. So there is actually that excuse to be said of, oh, well, this aircraft doesn't handle quite the same as the other one if you're not flying quite as well. So it was. We even had a student who, you had to sit at a certain height in the Tucano because the front ejection seat had spikes on the top. To the way the canopy shattered, it actually sort of clamshelled, and then ideally it would leave the aircraft, but if not, the front seat had 2 spikes on top that would punch through the canopy and obviously clear it out of the way. So we used to have to do this thing where we put a fist on top of our helmet to make sure that our head wasn't going to hit the canopy first before the spikes. So every student would have to do this, and then the instructor sitting on the back with this student asked him to do that because he felt he was sitting a bit high, and he couldn't get his hand between the canopy and his helmet. And it turned out that this guy was quite tall, but fit the measurements, and it actually turned out that about 10 of the fleet of 40 Tucanos he couldn't sit in because of they were built differently. So and we actually had a list that effectively this guy could or couldn't fly in certain aircraft because of his height. I mean, he wasn't that tall. He was probably 6'2", 6'3", so on the tall side. But it just really highlighted the differences. It's not just the length; that the aircraft in total are a bit different. So yeah.
Do you think the Texan's a good aircraft to take over the Tucano?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it moves with the time. So the Tucano, all of the training aircraft did need upgrading because the Tucano, we were still using paper map, stopwatch. We had no digital equipment, electronic equipment at all. It's all steam driven. If you think that you're going from that onto the Hawk T2 now, which is fully digital, and then onto the Typhoon or the F-35, then you need to move with the times. So it changes how you train, because one of the most taxing things in the Tucano was navigating around on a paper map and stopwatch, as it was with the Hawk T1. But you're not going to be doing that in a frontline aircraft.
Yeah.
And you've got to bear that in mind when you're doing that foundation training. So yeah, the Texan has all the gadgets and all the toys. So and it's a very similar type capability in terms of aircraft. So it's probably not quite as pretty in my view as the Tucano, but it's it's
You're biased though.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not a bad aircraft. Yeah.
So did you enjoy this role?
Yeah, loved it absolutely. I took instructing from my co-pilot role on the VC-10. I had the choice of stay as a captain or go instructing. I was interested by instructing, but partly that was also to be co-located with my wife. So, but actually having started to instruct, I absolutely loved it. I've always enjoyed flying, physically flying, rather than just doing the ops. And of course, the best place to do that in the Air Force is in flying instruction. So I enjoyed it on the tutor, but then obviously the Tucano is a bit more capable. So yeah, I had 4 years up there. Some of easily my fondest memories in a different way to being on the VC-10 as a first tourist. It was, I was now more mature, more experienced, but yeah, just the variety again that you got to do on the Tucano and the squadron ethos up there, and interacting with students, and then seeing them. Some of my course that I took through as a course commander are now some of the brand new pilots on the F-35, and they were on that ITV documentary. So it was interesting to just see them now, having taught them on the Tucano. And now they're flying F-35s, which I could never dream of doing. So yeah, it's really rewarding. Yeah.
You also spent a bit of time on the A400. Can you tell us about this?
Yes, it was a very short period of time on the A400. So I left Linton as a flight lieutenant and was going back to multi-engine. So I went to the A400, which I was really excited about. Brand new aircraft, a quantum leap in jump from anything I'd previously flown, even if you took the VC-10, but the Tucano as well, old aircraft going to the newest multi-engine aircraft there was. And then to add even more of a mix to it, I was then sent to Germany to do my type rating with the German Air Force as an agreement we had there, a trial. So I went there with one other guy, and the type rating is fully synthetic. This is what I was talking about. Modern airliners now will be very familiar with this, but because the sim is so accurate and the profiles you're flying, I wasn't leaving this course fully qualified to fly the A400 in all of its roles and its tactical roles and things like that. It was purely, could I fly it from A to B safely with some problems chucked in there? And that can all be done on the sim. So I think it was 21 events. I was there from October to December, and at the end of that, certificate, tick, you're a captain on the A400. That being said, the Air Force works in weird ways. So in November, I was promoted to squadron leader. There's a discussion then that happens about what you want to do, and I actually ended up taking a staff role at Air Command, mainly for family reasons. So I left the A400. So I never actually flew the A400 for real, unfortunately, and I was offered by the Germans. I remember at the time thinking, oh, it was just before Christmas. I thought, no, I'll get home. But I get back now, I think I should have taken that opportunity. But yeah, I mean, the sim was as real as you can get, and I remember weirdly, I'd say it was probably one of the easiest courses I've done, but not because of my ability, but because of how clever the aircraft is. I mean, you literally, flying is also very different. You pretty much fly the A400 with a keyboard and a sort of mouse cursor, and you've got 4 TV screens in front of you, and they are multifunctional displays. So yeah, it was so different. I was very nervous going there about would I be able to, having been out of multi-engine flying for a long time and it being such a modern aircraft, would I be able to cope? But actually the kit works. All these clever designs that have, and developments that have happened over the years make it a really nice aircraft to fly.
Is it meant to, take over the C-130, or is it meant to complement it?
No, it is meant as a replacement for the C-130, and hopefully a bit of an upgrade in terms of its load carrying and ability there. And then in other ways, it's very similar roles. So, but it is very much angled at doing the tactical air transport role, and the C-17 will still be doing the strategic air transport role. So yeah, that was the idea of it.
Being obviously a new aircraft, does it have some problems?
Yeah, as like I said, I left the fleet quite early, or very early, so I'm aware that it's probably had some teething difficulties, but all new aircraft do. So yeah, I think it's got some issues.
So do you think it'll be a good aircraft for the future?
Yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, it takes some time, but again, just should get any of our recent new aircraft, they all have these teething issues, and we have to figure out how to use them, and they're never quite what we had hoped for, but we find ways of getting the best out of them. And actually, I don't think aircraft in the military really start fulfilling their potential until maybe 10-15 years down the line, which sounds ridiculous, but it just seems to be the way. If you just look at history, that just seems to be the case, particularly with these longer development. It's not the 50s, 60s, 70s where we were churning out new aircraft every couple of years. These aircraft take a long time. So yeah, I do think it will be a really capable aircraft for the future.
So what are you currently up to?
So as I said, I took promotion, so unfortunately I'm behind a desk. I just finished an Air Command staff role, so I was working for 2 Group, who are at the time they were the multi-engine element of the Air Force. So I was effectively going to meetings and representing the group and sort of offering my background as a multi-engine pilot, and to when we were doing planning and such. So that was quite varied, quite interesting, and gave me the stability that we needed to start a family and whatnot. So, and then I'm looking now to go back to flying, which, but as a squadron leader, so it would be as a flight commander, hopefully to 45 Squadron. So I'm going full circle again, 45 Squadron to instruct on the Phenom. So a new aircraft for me, and we'll see, but that might be a little bit down the line yet. But unfortunately, once you get a desk, it's quite hard to shift from them sometimes. But yeah, that's my aspiration, because flying has always been a huge part of why I joined the Air Force. It's not the only part, but it is a massive part, and so I do miss it, and I do want to get back to it.
So you must have enjoyed your RAF career to date.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything like this has highs and lows, and equally the lows I now look back on and sort of have rose tinted glasses and sort of fond memories. But it's what I always wanted from a career, because it's varied. It's not a 9 till 5. It just gives you such variety, and it's all I've ever known as well. Like I said, I've always been interested in aviation. Joined the Air Cadets at 13, joined at 18. I don't know anything else anyway. The real world is totally foreign to me. All I know is the military. So, but yeah, it's been fantastic, and I think it will continue to be. There are always challenges. I remember getting 4 weeks' notice to go and do a 6-month out of area in a job that I wasn't expecting. So I was instructing on the tutor, 4 weeks' notice. You need to go and do a flight safety job in Afghanistan at Bastion for 6 months. Obviously at the time it's like that's not ideal, but I did it, and actually I look back at it now and think what a life experience that was. And actually, just purely as aircrew, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have had that experience to. And places like Bastion and stuff you hear about on the news, but unless you were there, you wouldn't understand the size and the scale of it. And more recently, I've just done a Bagram as well, so I've also done another similar role where I went out and commanded some Air Force personnel in Bagram. So just before they shut it now, but so those opportunities come up, and although they're not flying related, well, directly flying related, when I get back on it, they're life experiences, which that's what you get from the Air Force. So yeah.
So do you have any hobbies?
Yeah, so I did, maybe these are the standard ones for aircrew, but I enjoy skiing and scuba diving. So they're like sort of my two. Don't do them as much now that I have a little girl, but the skiing and scuba diving, very very fond of those. And then sport-wise in the Air Force, which is something that I always advised our student pilots to do if they had the opportunity, is to adopt a sport, or if they already were, they already enjoyed a sport, was to take it up in the Air Force, because the opportunity presented to follow a sport are fantastic. So I've always rowed in the Air Force. I'm the men's rowing captain now, so I do a bit more organising than actual rowing as I'm getting a bit older and a bit longer in the tooth and less fit. But I've had great opportunities there. Like you were talking about my experience of the Air Force, but just by rowing with the Air Force, I've done some tours. So the most recent one was only 2 years back. I went to South Africa for a couple of weeks to do some rowing events down there. I've been to America, even St. Petersburg really early on when we were a bit friendlier with the Russians. So and that's all through sport, through the military. And I don't think there are many jobs.
That's amazing.
I don't think there are many jobs that would offer that and almost give the blessing for it. So yeah, so rowing is my sort of chosen sport, and a bit of running as well. And then hobby-wise, skiing and scuba diving, which again I can also do in the military. So that's some of the extra stuff you don't always see. That again, when you talk about is it a satisfying career job? Yeah, absolutely, because you get to do stuff like that as well. So
it's gonna be a hard one for you, but I reckon I know the answer. Favorite aircraft you have flown?
That is a tricky one, because I said I've only got one kid at the moment, but it's a bit like trying to choose children, I imagine. So I think because they're all different and they all have good and bad points. I don't know. I mean,
I'm gonna have to pin you down for one.
Purely from a flying point of view, and that's what I've always really enjoyed, the Tucano, because we got to do low level formation aerobatics, formation 9 chips and things like that. So fly pasts, the Tucano. But for the life it gave me and the experience it gave me, then the VC-10 was brilliant as well. But yeah, Tucano for flying, purely from a flying point of view.
Is there an aircraft you would love to fly?
That's a tricky one as well. Can I have a couple?
Okay, I'll give you a couple.
Definitely the Blackbird. Like, what an amazing aircraft, and just looks amazing. And I mean, this is a childhood one, so you're obviously very focused on what it looks like, but also, I mean, it's a world beater, isn't it? So Blackbird would be epic. B1 was always a firm favourite of mine, and actually having operated out of Ali Deed, there were B1s there. So I remember once, one of my fondest memories was doing a night tanking mission and lining up at the runway hold point behind a B1 that was getting airborne, and just to see those 4 engines kick into reheat.
But you could feel it.
Oh, amazing! Yeah, absolutely amazing. Although a friend of mine still thinks the VC-10's noisier, but so yeah, B1, and then I was always fond of like the F-16 as a kid as well, because I think it was ahead of its time. If you think now, they're still around now doing what they do really well. So I think it was so advanced at the time it was developed. and then of course the Spitfire, obviously. I mean, yeah.
So can we find you online?
Yeah, I mean, I have a Twitter account. I think I'm Nash111 Nash or something. There's clearly too many Nash111s, but yeah, and I do post on it sometimes, particularly any sort of charity or involvement that I'm trying to draw attention to, and sometimes on Instagram as well. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Chris, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you, pleasure.